All right, welcome to the Paul Harrell program, everybody. I think we fixed our previous technical difficulties. We've got the stream back up and running on X America News, and we really appreciate you guys being with us. We got a lot to talk about, specifically Epstein gaslighting. It continues. Also, maybe we'll get into the discussion about when banning things is actually a good thing. The Paul Harrell program finally starts now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. As always, we can't do the program without you watching, so we really do appreciate it. I'm joined by my co-host, Rob Spencer, alongside Jacob Holloway. Rob, thank you so much. I know you were out yesterday.
I was out yesterday. I had a previous commitment there, but I'm glad to be back. Great discussions yesterday with Dan Sullivan. We may talk about that a little bit today. And then, of course, I've watched Jacob on your show previously, and so glad to share the space with Jacob. You know, I mean, obviously what we're looking at right now, and people would say, you know, hey, you're not doing what Trump has asked you to do, which is move on. And I know that you would like us to move on, Trump, but this is a big thing. If we were sold a bill of goods and there is a situation where some stuff is being hidden from us, which it seems like don't, as I said on Monday, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining.
Yep.
You know, then we're going to explore that, and that just goes to show the diversity within the Republican Party or the conservative side of things, where we're not so, you know, just kowtowing to our leader. We're actually having some individual thought.
Well, it's a coalition. It's definitely a coalition where the debate happens. It's a coalition movement at this point.
Right.
So, Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I'm bringing some information here that I think we need to look at. I've come into possession of years and years of research on the world elite, the power elite that run the world, and I've been privy to this research for many years, and I've alluded to it in a former show. We
had like a snippet of
like
it.
a snippet of it. Now I'm going ahead and releasing more snippets of this large database, research database that's been collected of the entire world elite. And I can tell you this, you know, I mean, the data and the research speaks for itself, but you can see that a large section of the power elite, you cannot really study the world power elite without running into Jeffrey Epstein again and again and again and again. What's interesting about that, you know, maybe 15 years ago, you know, when you heard about Jeffrey Epstein and only a handful of my friends would bring this up or even talk about it, it was almost just kind of a novelty to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein thing. There were just so many issues out there, but to hear that be mentioned, you know, the Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein Island, it was like a rare thing. You just didn't hear folks talk about it as much. And for the folks who did talk about it, there was a kind of, you know, almost with a wink and a nod and a laugh about it, that, you know, it sounded like a really whimsical, fantastical conspiracy theory at the time. 15 years later, now it's full vindication for anybody who ever talked about it, and it got mainstreamed real fast within a year.
Do you think it was like the Me Too movement, Harvey Weinstein? Do you think that that's just kind of...
I think it played into it, but when Epstein got arrested and then, you know, mysteriously died in jail and never got to go to never got to go through any of the court proceedings or anything like that, you know, I mean, that really just put, you know, threw a fire on it, you know.
Well, and they said video didn't exist of that. Now they've released that video and there's a missing 60 seconds. I saw a great AI video that I was showing Jacob there that showed Hillary Clinton walking in that missing 1 minute, you know, just kind of as a joke. And it, you know, a lot of people are having fun with it, but it's a serious thing. I mean, we saw there was these children, you know, young girls that were sex trafficked, and the world's elite were taking part of this. I mean, and there's just no other way around it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, you know, we see this, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff got so much publicity, right? And that seems to be the big one that, you know, now everybody can understand that this sex trafficking thing is probably real. but even with another show that we did previously, I kind of exposed that this sex trafficking thing seems to be a lot more widespread than we would even initially
I didn't send you
anticipated.
that show, Rob, that he had done, but he worked, in Nevada for the university system, and there was a whole. It's very public with a professor. What was the professor's name?
It was Dr. Fei Fan, and the professor was Dr. Zhang. That was Fei was a victim of Dr. Zhang, but there were several.
Yeah, from
China.
China.
They were basically using the university's graduate student program and graduate student visas to sex traffic women from China.
Yeah,
under the guise of education.
Well, they say that more people are in slavery right now than any other time in human history, and we all know that I would say that the majority of that is sex slavery. I mean, when you remember the Angel Studio production, Sound of Freedom, they've got several, but there's one called I think it's called Sound of Freedom.
Yeah,
and my wife and I went and watch it in the movie theater. And I'm going to tell you something. If you don't watch that, and if you're a parent, if you go watch that movie or watch it now, streaming or whatever, and you're not just completely heartbroken and realize that is happening worldwide, globally. But we had these high profile individuals that are tied to Jeffrey Epstein, where not only was this happening from some dark, seedy, Colombian drug lord who's got someone in sex slavery. This was happening. These are elite actors and musicians and celebrities and all of that. And we're just sweeping it under the rug. And now they're trying to tell us that, well, none of that existed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's been handled really bad, and we're going to get to Jacob's data points here in just a minute, literal data points, actually. But before we do that, like this, I guess this is the gaslighting we've been talking about. This is now, it's absolutely insane that this is where we're at. Pam Bondi, has handled this extremely, like the worst you could handle it. People are trying to make sense of it. Roger Stone has an interesting take on that. We want to listen to that, but this is kind of the clip that just made things go from bad to worse when it comes to Trump's MAGA base. This is a big deal. So listen to this.
Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the staff?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
That's it, folks. That's all there is to it.
the explanation of the missing minute, I understand what she's trying to say is that they use the same tape, or same sets of tapes, and it records over itself, and it skips that same minute every night. And it did just happen to be at midnight, so maybe that's plausible. I can tell you this, that whole Fox News interview is making the rounds and all of that. She was specifically asked by John Roberts about the list.
Yep.
Not about the files on her desk. She was asked about the list. And she answered that question. So don't try to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of moment. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about your words and quoting back to you on that. And then lastly, that's really disappointing, Trump's answer. That whole trying to shame the reporter on that question. You can try to shame the reporter about, about the Ukraine thing. You remember the Ukraine, like, what did you want President Zelensky to do? Like, what did you want him to look into? Whatever. Like, how dare you ask this guy a question? You can say that because whatever. But we're talking about sex trafficked children.
Yep. We're talking about something that has been, like Jacob said earlier, this was fringe 15 years ago, but now it's part of like the modern American knowledge. Like the question we have, why do our politicians run on a platform, go to Washington, D.C., and then come back with excuses as to why we can't do what you sent us here to do? And one of those answers for the last 10 years has been maybe they're being blackmailed.
Yeah.
And so, to just now take all of this and say, he even used the word desecration. And I want to actually,
It's weird.
It is very weird. But I want to throw this up on the screen because I want people to understand how this has become a part of the MAGA coalition. This idea of who is Epstein, so I'll go with this one here.
Service issue and to reach out to the Secret Service. But I can tell you this. They have a lot of questions as to who exactly at the Trump campaign knew and when, because I have talked to a number of people who have been on the ground with the former president in recent days and weeks who had no idea. Now, one thing to remember is that Donald Trump has a very tight-knit security team. He has been with the same detail for years. He is very close to them. They have a lot of
So where's the Epstein client list? This is not something that's new. This is something we all know. We're all being gaslit. We're all being told, they're peeing on our leg and they're telling us it's raining. Mm-hmm. And then I can go further. Donald Trump himself went on the Lex Friedman podcast.
But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago.
Now, that is an interesting answer. Mm-hmm. I'll take a look at it. And then he's saying... But
then he pivots to Kennedy.
The Kennedy, because it's been 70 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can look at... Anytime Trump doesn't want to answer the question, he'll always say, we'll look at it. Mm-hmm. We'll look at it.
Well, he gives more of a definitive answer at the end of this clip.
I do agree with this.
They do that for danger, too, because, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But, yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
I'd be inclined to do it. But
I have no problem with it.
So it certainly is. He knows.
Mm-hmm.
And we could say the same thing. We've got this story that you put in the folder, Rob, about we've got they're now investigating, right? They are investigating Comey, the FBI, investigating Comey and Brennan for framing Trump for treason, essentially, with the Russia collusion hoax. But that was almost 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago because it started in 2015. Are we still talking about James Comey? Are we still going to talk about John Brennan?
That's older than the Epstein thing, or at least
he killed himself in 2019.
2019.
Yeah. So it's a head scratcher. We could draw our own conclusions. What are the conclusions? There are just too many powerful people on the list.
I mean, if you want to give an example, I mean, it's just it's really a who's who of all of Jeffrey Epstein's friends, and I think the people themselves who knew him for a long time didn't have problems being associated to him. So it's actually easy. Really, it's public information that just has to be collected to really track down who are all of his associates and friends, and it's a who's who of business and Hollywood and politics and everybody. It really, Jeffrey Epstein covered all different sectors of the elite. Not just and he wasn't like Weinstein where he's just in Hollywood or like he's just in politics. He's like politics, business, media, everything.
Yeah, apparently, according to Mike Benz, he says that, back in the 80s, he was the key money launderer for Khashoggi, who was the biggest weapons dealer, black market weapons guy on the planet back in the 80s.
There's even a conspiracy that Jeffrey Epstein had a hand to play in the 2008 mortgage crisis collapse.
Really,
Yes.
I've never heard that one.
And his ties to international financing as an international financier, and I don't know enough about that particular rabbit hole, but I mean, this guy's like everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, it's like Jeffrey Epstein is the most interesting man in the world,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how many things did this guy really have his hands in, and how many people did he know? So I joke that Jeffrey Epstein is the, instead of the Corona guy, the Mexican guy on the Corona bill.
Yeah.
They should put Jeffrey Epstein there because
Yeah.
he's literally the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, on the evil flip side of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, on the evil flip side
It's
of
hard
it,
to put
yeah.
anything past him because a grown man that would have sex with a 14-year-old girl where she is essentially against her will, and then video it and all of this stuff. I mean, he has no morals.
I'm surprised that no one has asked Pam Bondi. I don't know if she'll do a press conference soon. I think they're bleeding right now, political capital with all of this. But, I mean, she says, by the way, we didn't even address the fact that it's a straw man. She's setting up a straw man where she says that was child porn. It's never going to be released. None of us are asking to see that.
Correct.
Yeah.
We just want to know, was Jeffrey Epstein alone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is he the only other person in these videos? That's what we want to know.
Yeah, because it sort of talked out of both sides of her mouth in different interviews where she said there were thousands of victims, then tens of thousands of victims, and then she said over 250 victims, and you're like, okay, how many is it? Mm-hmm. How many is it? And somebody might say, okay, well, she's talking about over 10,000 victims because of all the hours and thousands of hours of child pornography that he had, in his possession. But we're left to believe that when you say that there are thousands of victims, we know Jeffrey Epstein was not the only person who was engaging in that sexual contact with these minors.
Right.
So if you say 250, well, then maybe you could believe that was all Epstein and Maxwell and all of that stuff. So is this like backtracking here to make it seem like more plausible that Epstein was the only person and Maxwell was his assistant? And
so before we get I want to go down this rabbit trail right here. So earlier today, Roger Stone was on with Alex Jones, okay? And they were talking about this, and they're trying to make sense of it like everybody else. And this was Roger Stone's take. Listen to this.
He has to make a clean breast of it. I suspect, this is speculation, I'm not going to say this on the air, but don't you think the Israelis, the Brits, the Saudis, everybody else who has dirty laundry here is saying to Trump, we can't have this out. This is very problematic for us. At the same time, he's trying to negotiate a peace deal and avert World War III. That's a guess on my part. I haven't talked to him about this.
Well, no, there's no doubt it's not a guess. Obviously, the entire establishment would come down, and so all these allies are bare minimum begging, especially the British, do not release this. I think that's a no-brainer. Why then come out and slap people around and say, stop asking questions?
I'm not sure. First of all, the president's got larger things on his mind at the moment. He's trying to negotiate a peace deal, both between the Russians and the Ukrainians. He's trying to negotiate a peace deal, obviously, between the Iranians and Israel. He's got a fragile ceasefire. The economy is cooking like never before. I can only speculate. I'm not going to say this as a statement, but I suspect, given the fact that a former Israeli prime minister, a member of the British royal family, among others, visited the island multiple times, they weren't going there for the weather, that there has to be international pressure to make this issue go away. But at the grassroots, Alex, you know that it's not going to go away. The president knows the American people deserve truth, transparency, and justice, particularly when it what concerns those who think they're above the law.
Thoughts on that? I mean, I can't really argue with the idea that other countries who have their, if you take the royal family, for example, or a former Israeli prime minister who's been implicated, who was at the island, or any other of these foreign dignitaries, the governments are telling Trump, please do not do this.
They may well, but I mean, this is also spin as well. I mean, to protect Donald Trump. I mean, he's then, still implicated in it, right? Even if he's negotiating something or whatever. It's just interesting to see how the world power elite would work in that regard. But I the thing with Alex Jones and Roger Stone, and I mean, they're definitely operatives. I think they're, they've been spinning things in Trump's favor for years now. So, I think they're at this point slightly biased in what their coverage is on this.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of. We were talking earlier. There are people on X that are calling people panicans, but they're because we're not, we're not believing that this is some sort of 5D chess move, by the president. And it's like, well, we just have to understand this is a coalition where everybody, there's a lot of different opinions that amongst the people that voted for Trump, and we need to be as vocal as we want. Like if we're seeing this. And we're not supposed to just shut up about it. We need to be honest. We need to praise the administration if they do something good, and call them out when this is just an obvious fail on so many levels.
I saw some folks that were trying to draw it and say, kind of paint the picture of, okay, well, let's just say that Trump's not on the list, but he knows who's on the list, and he's got all of these people in his back pocket, meaning, hey, just so you know, I've got this list, and right now I'm downplaying this thing, but you better do what I want you to. Right, I need to pass this. I need to do this. We need to do that. And I was like, I was reading that, and I said, okay, I have a lot of faith in that guy running the country. We saw what he could do for 4 years. Well, prior to COVID, we saw what could happen, and I feel like that we're going to be on the right track with that again this year. But I don't just think that everything he does is just some 5D chess move where we're all the dumbest people in the world,
right?
And we're just supposed to believe that this guy is just constantly thinking 15 steps ahead of everyone.
That's more of a I think this is a projection of people who are just either it comes out of the Trump campaign, or people really believe it, or a combination of both. That like this guy, is infallible. But the connection, Donald Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein are quite condemnable, quite damnable, quite easy to prove by his own public admissions and public statements that he's made. I mean, Donald Trump once said Jeffrey Epstein's like a brother to him. Yeah. That can't get any closer than if Jeffrey Epstein is like his brother, then that's like the closest association that you could possibly have in some ways. And he met.
I will say this: he also outed Jeffrey Epstein,
kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago.
No, that's true.
And he outed him to the New Yorker magazine in the late '90s.
Said he likes him young.
Said he likes him young. And so, and I think the conventional wisdom is, again, this is if you abandon the uniparty apparatus, but the some might say, look, if he was in there, with all the weaponization of government that he went through, this would have come out. Although maybe if you release that, then it implicates the other people as well. I don't know, but he's on that Lex Friedman podcast saying I never went to the island, right? And so that's a pretty bold statement to make if you actually did go and there's proof out there of it. You think that would have been leaked by now?
I don't think he says that. If he went to, I don't think he's lying. I don't think he went to the island.
Yeah,
I really don't. But
the parties and stuff like that. There are those photos.
We just assumed that trafficking happened only on that island. I mean, it didn't. It happened anywhere that Epstein had.
And this is a reasonable conversation to have.
Yes.
Based on based on the audio clip of Pam Bondi and Trump that we just had. I mean, it's not unreasonable to speculate about this. When now you're the most powerful person in the world, and now it's like, okay, yeah, don't worry. That's what did he say? A desecration to bring it up.
Yeah.
What is that about?
Well, it's kind of tone deaf, I think. I think he kind of handled. So I don't know why he felt like he had to jump in there on that.
Well, I will say this: it was interesting. I don't think he wanted Bondi to answer it for whatever reason. There could be several different reasons. But if you go back and watch his body language when she starts trying to talk about why the minute is missing.
He doesn't like it.
He does not like it.
He's like, she's answering too much of this question. I just told them they shouldn't be asking it.
I just think he's got to know that the whole binder thing, everything. Yeah. I mean, it's just such a huge mistake of how they handled all of this.
Well, yeah. So I mean, again, it's not just Donald Trump. It's a lot of people he knows. A lot of these associations, they all are connected and know each other.
Yeah.
And so it's not just Donald Trump. It's like a lot of people.
Well, let's throw this up there. This is what looks to me to be
start on the yeah. Go ahead.
This looks to me to be a very detailed project, Jacob Holloway, that has taken somebody a very, very long time. So people may have trouble actually seeing this, but that's JE highlighted down there, stands for Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
And this, in its true form, is like an interactive graph.
Yes.
We just have screenshots.
Yes, you just have some of the screenshots that just show there's the Ghislaine Maxwell connections.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, this is... You could get lost in this because I was messing around with it, but this just is a demonstration of how many people are lobbying Congress or lobbying whoever to make sure that this information never comes out, never sees the light of day.
Yeah. So you got and you can kind of see if you go back to the the large.
I'm doing my best here.
Yeah, well, I said this, maybe zoom out and just see the whole
just the whole list.
Oh no, the other pictures.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's about 10 pictures I think I sent, and we can just start and then just zoom in and look at some of these names because they're all names people know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to clarify to viewers,
we're having trouble finding the rest of them.
We're purposefully not showing what this website is.
Yeah,
there we go. And here's some more of them.
Because
Bill Richardson. I mean, that's a well-known name, former governor of New Mexico, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big Bill Clinton ally.
Yep.
As well, Bill Clinton surrogate.
Clinton's on the list.
Yep. And then there's Khashoggi. There's Adnan Khashoggi. That's exactly what I was referring to. Mike Benz has been talking about Khashoggi there.
Yep.
So give if you're a listener watching this and you're a little bit confused by this graph, give like the simplistic view of what this actually is.
This is just all the people. These are nodes, and they're connected to each other. And it just shows all the connections between all the different individuals who are friends, who are family, maybe how they're connected. And, again, this is the entire world power elite, but Jeffrey Epstein's a huge node. The size of the node shows maybe their prominence
So
and the power elite.
the bigger
more
the
people
dot,
they know.
the more people they know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so
I
it's
didn't
not
know that.
necessarily saying that every name on this list knows Jeffrey
No,
Epstein.
but if you were at that island, you're
Yeah.
not on this list.
Yeah.
Does that that's the
To a
double
certain
Yes.
the double negative
The
of
double
the day.
negative of the day, yes.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
If you went to that island,
yeah.
you're on this list.
all
Correct.
of these
But just
names.
because you're on the list doesn't
Bill
mean you
Bill
went to
Clinton. Yep. You know,
that. Oh, it's crazy, man. It's absolutely nuts.
You
Jeff
can go down.
Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg
Yeah.
And you also
Rudy
have like
Giuliani.
foundations and stuff. You've got like companies and
that are connected to him. MIT Media Lab.
And we
Which
are
is crazy.
Again, we want to clarify, we are not saying that if you are on this list that you had sexual relations with minors.
No, these are just friends
Yeah.
of Jeffrey Epstein.
These are all
these
These are
point
his
is-
friends.
The point is, when you say friends, they probably like before Epstein was a household name for being a pervert and degenerate. These people would likely be like, "Hey, Jeffrey," if they saw him out in public. "Hey, Jeffrey." They know who the man
know
is.
who
They
he
know
is,
him. That's the point, and that's why
He knows all these
that's
people.
why there's so much. That's why they don't want anything.
Reid Hoffman, the creator of LinkedIn.
Yep.
right.
you
So
know?
you've got the elite of the elite on this list, their family, all of this stuff, and how they're all interconnected. And you just try to say, okay, well, if even 10% of these people were in that alleged black book of Maxwell's,
Yeah, it's
of the alleged client list, then
Which
you,
is under court order seal, by the way.
you completely understand why this list has not been released. I am not signing. I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I understand completely why the list has or hasn't been released. Because it hasn't been, obviously.
Right.
But what I will sit here and say is I understand why it's not been released due to the powerful names on that on that graph.
Yeah, it just shows you the guy.
Yeah, it's a who's who.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It
It's
really
all of
is.
his friends are a who's who. All these names.
Yeah,
And this is
Yeah.
this
Sarah
is
J.
not
Ben.
just to clarify.
Ari
This website.
Emanuel.
Yeah, to clarify, this website is not speculation. This is confirmed connections.
These are confirmed connections to Jeffrey Epstein. This is not speculation. This was research.
Yeah.
And these are well researched connections like Elon Musk. He don't why does Elon Musk keep bugging President Trump about the Epstein list? It's almost like he knows. And they both know. And I don't know why Elon's even saying it because he's implicated. Maybe he doesn't care. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe it just felt like bringing out the nuclear weapon.
Implicated in the
Yeah.
sense that he knew.
He knew him.
There's
Yeah.
photos of
He knows
Musk
him.
and Epstein together.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard. He can't deny that, but he can
Right.
deny
He can say, I
going
didn't-
to the island.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
All these tech founders, like Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
and Hoffman. Hoffman created LinkedIn. Zuckerberg did the Facebook,
Meta. Yeah.
and Meta, and all of that's connected.
It's wild, man.
And then I just show some of the other connections to other powerful people. Again, Bill Gates was also connected to Jeffrey Epstein. He had dinner with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
That's another famous clip of him saying, "Well, Jeffrey Epstein died." So, what does that teach us? When they asked him about what.
Here's another
Yeah.
thing that
Was that like a thinly veiled death threat?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can find that, it was a PBS interview. Actually, it was one of the craziest interviews with Bill Gates, and it was one of the last big interviews he's done, I guess, because after he said that, it was pretty crazy. She nailed him on the Epstein thing, and he got real nervous, and
Yeah,
he
I
kind of
remember
said
that.
something that really didn't sound right.
But here's another conspiracy theory, though, that I don't really hear anyone talking about right now because they're so busy trying to gaslight us, trying to get us to be convinced that he killed himself. I don't hear anybody really saying anymore, was the whole thing fake? Is Epstein still alive? You don't really hear anybody saying that anymore. But that's still...
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have to be crazy not to at least consider it,
Maybe
that the whole thing was fake.
he was an operative, and that was the final. He was done.
Yeah.
He had to,
That 1 minute was how long. I mean, he could get out of that cell in 10 seconds. So if that was the vacant
And
minute,
all the other cameras are off. And all the other thing we didn't talk about was when Bondi says that, oh, hey, that's just part of the system. We got to reset the tapes or whatever. What an interesting piece of information. Like if you were a special operator and that was a system
and you knew that.
and you knew that. Well, and this is not my other problem with it. So this is just all this is done. They released the tape that Dan Bongino said, "Oh yeah, oh and by the way, Rob, I didn't tell you this, but like what we were seeing, you know how we were seeing the difference between the doors, and we were thinking that the official DOJ photo of his cell wasn't. Well, what that angle is, and I don't have the graph with me, but I covered it earlier today on Millstone. But the angle that you're seeing, the doors that you can see, they're not saying that that's the cell. They're saying that the cell is down into that lower level to the right, where so the camera you can't even see the cell. In what they released, the whole angle is blocked. The cell is actually the same one that we originally thought. We were pointing out the inconsistency, and so there's this huge blind spot, and it just the whole thing doesn't make sense. But all she's doing now is fueling the speculation because. There every night. I mean, that's like something from Mission Impossible. That's like something from the movies. You know, Mr. Hunt every night they have to change the tapes, and you have 1 minute. Come on, man. This is insane. This is absolutely pathetic.
Well, you know, it's interesting that it's now like whether Jeffrey Epstein is alive or dead. It's like the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein lives forever.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, how many years has this man been officially dead? And we cannot stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
And they're basically saying now he didn't exist. Yeah, he wasn't real. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't real.
Well,
that's essentially what they're telling us.
Well, I've just said, I'm just like, well, if we don't have all of these evidence, we don't have all these clients, we don't have all of these people, then why did he kill himself? You know, why is Maxwell in prison? Right? And you're like, well, it's because you have child pornography on your computer or something of that nature, but you know,
that's what we should be demanding. Honestly, like I think that would be the most tangible piece of evidence that we could get is that there were third parties implicated in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and the judge has sealed it. So that actually could be the most. You know, we would know it would be factual because it was submitted to a court. You know, it was evidence used to convict her. There were third parties involved, and they all got their names to be hushed up forever. If the Trump administration could do anything, not that I'm holding my breath, but that would be the one thing to try to do is to get that information out. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well,
I
think.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, like, you know, we're never going to see the client list because it's now been in the Democrat-controlled hands and now the Republican-controlled hands, and the DOJ. Either way, you know. And so what we're hearing is the exact same story. And so people would say, "Well, that's because that's the truth." And you're like, "Nah, I don't know."
Jacob, why do you think they even did the way they did? I mean, wouldn't it have been easier just to say like, Biden administration destroyed all the evidence and it's gone? And people wouldn't have believed that either, but they would have a lot better time believing that than Pam Bondi saying, here's phase one. Oh, the FBI and Southern District of New York lied to me. There's all these Epstein documents. Now we're going to get them. Now they're on my desk. Like, why did she do this?
I think all they want to do is just stall things out and keep it like throw enough out there where, you know, it looks like they're doing something, but then complain about how hard it is. And then just drag their feet, because if they drag their feet for 4 years on this and just leak out just enough, you know, where it's kind of like just keeps it a mystery.
So pacifies.
And then it's another administration's. You know, they're gonna have to, you know, follow up, and they're gonna have to figure out, you know, what to say and follow up on, and it's their football. They have to take it and run with it. So if the Trump administration can do whatever they can to just kind of like make this go away while they're in power, and just especially through the midterms and stuff like that, you know, they almost have to do this. They almost have to act like they're for releasing it, because you don't want to be implicated in it, but also, like, you know, they're for releasing, not, you know, they're basically for this slow walking, leaky kind of release. By the time Trump's out of office, then you know.
I want to remind the audience though, because we did a show on it. You worked for the Trump campaign in a state, right? Right. So I'm just bringing that up because I think that makes your criticism even more valid. Like,
well, and I'm certainly, I'm just pointing out, you know, I mean, I'm criticizing the way that they're doing this, yeah, certainly, but I'm just pointing out, you know, I mean, I knew all this stuff, you know, for years.
Yeah, I mean,
and I mean, what can you do? I mean, we got a whole system. You know, I said before I ever did anything and with the Republicans that, you know, I'm not necessarily associated with that party, or, you know, I freely went and worked for Donald Trump knowing some of this stuff was true, you know, but I mean, this is the system we're caught in.
Yeah,
this is really messed up.
Yeah, the corruption is baked in.
It's,
I mean, it just is. The corruption is baked in.
Corruption's baked in. I mean, you gonna say that you wanted Kamala Harris president?
Yeah, of course not.
And I've said that to people. I was just like, we can be frustrated in how this is being handled and still not regret our vote.
Of course,
you know, that's not because we saw what the alternative would be. You know, a cackling salad speaker. You know, whatever. So. Criticism of Trump does not say, "Oh, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater." That's not what we're trying to say here. We're just trying to say we were talked to. I mean, especially like we're sending more weapons to Ukraine.
What in the world's that about?
Oh, certainly. Well, I mean, and if anybody in the Republican intelligentsia or the conservative intelligentsia that's got Trump's ear had any sense to bring this up, you know, is just like, this thing's like wildfire.
Yeah.
If you don't address it, it's just going to consume everything.
They're hoping it will go out. They're hoping it'll go away.
But this stuff never goes
away?
away.
Yeah.
This stuff never goes away because it's like now with the internet and all the activists on the internet and like all the things that people ever said, and it's just like all the comments that you can see on the internet about this stuff, man, it's just so been mainstreamed.
Yep, it's right. You had the photo bomb. That's why I played the photo bomb of the guy where the Epstein files behind the CNN reporter. People have been begging for this.
Mainstream, and when things are like underground mainstream, and they go viral and stuff, it's just like impossible to really stop this stuff right now getting out and people wanting to talk about it. And it's almost like on the conservative side of things too. The more you know about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, it's like, you know, it used to be crazy, now it's cool to know about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, where it might have been crazy, now it's cool, now you're edgy, you know, you're certainly not mainline if you're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, you know, and I think that really filters out the mainline from the grassroots.
Well, look at Ben Shapiro. I don't have the clip, but I mean, he's now saying, "Oh yeah, you know,
no big deal,
no big deal. Jeffrey Epstein is the lowest priority. Forget about it." You know, it's ridiculous.
The reason is because I'm going to tell you something. If you remember during the first administration for Trump, if you followed Ben Shapiro, who I agree with on 90% of the stuff, maybe 95, I don't know. I agree with him on a lot of stuff. I think he goes a little too far with Israel, and I think that's simply because of his Jewish, you know, heritage. So I mean, whatever. But I can tell you, so during the first administration, he would criticize Trump, or he would repost something that Trump did, and he would put "good Trump." He posted that a lot, and it was almost like a little bit of, if Donald Trump is following him, there's a little bit of Pavlov's dog. Like, is he trying to train up Trump, you know, through the social media? Yeah. And so what you're seeing right now is almost unabated, like absolute support of Donald Trump. And I think it's because of the bombing of, you know, the nuclear facilities in Iran.
Yeah.
And how much Ben Shapiro just like, yes, Trump is my hero kind of thing.
Now, of course, they wanted a full-fledged war.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
wanted
did.
regime change.
Yeah.
Really, I think.
So, and I think, but Ben Shapiro's one of the smartest men alive. I think he realizes that that's where not where most of the country is, or the world, you know, like
he still pushes it though. Like,
he does.
Oh yeah, no. Ben Shapiro was a war hawk way back in the day.
Yeah,
man.
he's
been pushing that Iraq war. You know, I remember that. He's pushing that Iraq war, and I always wondered. I said, where do they pull these guys out of? Who's Ben Shapiro? He's like my age. Why does he get to go on Fox News or whatever and talk about invading Iraq like a rabid dog? And this was like George W. Bush, administration. They were rolling out Ben Shapiro. I always wonder. I was like, who is Ben Shapiro? Why does anybody care what he has to say?
I mean,
No, it's just funny.
well, he had so many of those like inflammatory, hot, and it was a lot of it was like racial relations and transgender.
So yeah, there was they built his credibility up for owning the libs on college campuses, and I can't deny that wasn't entertaining.
Yeah.
It certainly was, but then he's the guy that was all promoting the COVID narrative. Get the shots, you get the jab, you dopes, is what he told everybody.
He's part of that.
So-
He's part of that dark web of intelligence operatives who are also placed in the media. I feel like, and so he's been trained up for this, and he. The reason I brought him up, to your point, Rob, is everybody's just there are some that are trying, like him, just trying to say, moving on from this, and I don't think it's going to go away to the point that it's not going to go away. I think it's going to be part of pop culture for a long time. Here is, I don't know if you've ever heard this guy. He's pretty popular on Instagram. He's very quick with writing music about popular culture or whatever's happening. Wells Music is what it is. And so he gets to work and he writes a song called The List.
List all your wishes, that's a wish list, dude. You got your Amazon and Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy too. But I know a list that don't exist, and buddy, so do you. It's the Epstein list, it's a mystery list with a twist. It's a myth of a list that we all just missed. Be an optimist, not a pessimist. If you wish to persist, it's probably best you forget that list. Now what were we talking about? I don't remember, but I can sleep a lot better at night. Yeah, life can just go along, knowing there's 10,000 hours of sunshine and flowers and nobody doing a damn thing wrong. Hear no, see no, damn Bongino, Cash Patel. Well, I wouldn't wanna be a sweating man with bulging eyes. Now tell me them fellas ain't compromised.
They do both have bulging eyes.
Dude'll tell you, anybody on the big list knows just how far the folks in charge will go to keep the status quo. So when the war bell rings, the song that they'll sing is a song that we well know. I-oh, so it's off to war I go. Well, they said they's gonna fix it, but now they're all complicit. They-oh, so it's off to war we go. Send the poor off to war, what else are we for? They-oh.
It's pretty incredible, honestly.
Yeah. There's so much, like you have to listen to that song probably 15 times to catch it all because he's so quick.
But he is linking the fact that the list won't get released so that American foreign policy and more war will continue, which is interesting, but I think is spot on.
Yeah, certainly, it's a really good critique there.
Yeah, he is linking what we were just talking about.
Yeah,
going to war with Iran or going to war wherever, or Ukraine or whatever, the military-industrial complex, he's linking it with, if the list gets released, and it goes back to what Roger Stone did say. It's not just American politicians in Congress, it's the UK, it's Australia, it's everybody.
For all we know, this information's being used for all kinds of blackmail, for all kinds of purposes.
Currently, right now.
If you really want to think about it, if it goes that deep, then the entire power elite has blackmailed themselves, which is insane. The power elite blackmailed themselves. Someone in or a group inside decided, I think Epstein was an agent, and this was his mission, was to just get blackmail on every single person, every single powerful person in the world. If that was his mission, he completed it.
And then they'll all back each other. And you might even, you talk about like Stockholm syndrome. You might even get to the point where you like that they have blackmail on you because they know that they've got blackmail on your friends. It literally secures your
shield
power.
Yeah, it secures your power because they got you by the balls, so they feel safe putting you in wherever position. And that might be like a thing they have to do. Who knows?
Some people think that. I've actually heard that. Some people do think that
either that or they just through just they got caught in the honey trap.
Yeah.
and then it was just a freebie for
Yeah.
for,
It
for
could be a mixture of both, because you're inevitably going to have virtuous people that start out that way.
How many people went to the island, found out what was going on, and said, "Get me the hell out of here," and then their career was over?
We don't.
Yeah.
We'll
never
know.
That's a really good point.
we'll never know.
That's a really good point. How many people?
Yeah.
How many people? Yeah, because you hear about one-hit wonders or something like that, and then they go. I think what would be a really interesting. There was what's the comedian? What's the black comedian who was on the podcast? The pimp, Cat Williams. Yeah, he has some really interesting stuff to say about how he has allegedly stayed. I wonder if he's on. Is Cat? That's my question.
Oh, we'll
is
have to
Cat
know.
Williams? We need to look.
I think he's not, but I think he's found out who is on it, because that's why he's exposing.
Yeah.
But everybody's like, okay, we're not going to take him out because he's so crazy.
Right.
He's
Like
a comedian.
and it's hard to take him seriously. But when you listen to, was it with Shannon Sharp? Was that the when he's on that?
Come on, Cat. Come on, Cat.
When he's talking about Kevin Hart, I mean, he hates Kevin Hart.
Yep.
And he believes that Kevin Hart is a plant, And he just goes on to that stuff, and if you listen to what he's actually saying, it's kind of like, call this a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But what's our record right now as conspiracy theorists? I mean, we're
for
kind of
clarity,
batting 100.
when I said I wonder if Cat Williams is on the list, I wasn't talking about the Epstein list. I was talking about all the data points we were just looking at. That's what I was talking about. I don't know, but yeah, Cat Williams on that Shannon Sharp podcast laid out essentially a formula for the black celebrity, what you have to do if you want to be in the club.
Yeah.
And there's an exact formula to it that he laid out, and it was just devastating. I mean, anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard about this actually. But
And
and the rap industry too is the same.
Yeah.
He's basically succeeded, in spite of that. Maybe he participated in some of it until he figured it out, and he's like, this is not my thing.
Yeah, He claims that his virginity has I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he claims that his virginity is intact.
I've heard that this is widespread within the music entertainment industry. And
well, we haven't even
specifically
talked
the
about
rap
Diddy.
industry.
Let's just talk about it. It's not just the last 72 hours. It's the last week. Because Diddy gets off on the most serious charges of human trafficking. This was going to be huge.
Yep.
What a signal. James Comey's daughter was in charge of this. James Comey's daughter was in charge of the investigation or the prosecution of this case.
Yep.
And Diddy gets off, basically scot-free. He's going to, he's got 2 charges, but they're way lesser than the RICO and the human trafficking. He gets off on that. And so, no more information about baby oil. Was the baby oil drugged? Really what was going on? But we know it was a blackmail operation. Similar to, what's likely is it was a blackmail operation similar to
Epstein.
Yeah. And so we get demoralized there, and then you're telling me a few days later this happens, and we get this. Of course, it was a leaked memo. We also forget that it was either the White House that leaked the memo. It was an unsigned, undated memo. So the White House leaked it, the FBI leaked it, or the DOJ leaked it. Somebody leaked this memo that was not ready for release yet.
Yeah, it was somebody who wanted to hurt the Trump administration, and we know that those people exist in the FBI, in the DOJ, even in the White House.
I mean,
they exist in the White House too.
Yeah, I mean, it is upsetting though to know our leaders are most likely a lot of them, but not all of them, but many of them are tied to this and possibly compromised and different ways. And for us as citizens, I think we just have to put it into perspective right now. I mean, I've kind of developed a little bit of a stoicism about it. Otherwise, it would drive you crazy. It's just an acceptance of the fact that there's corruption in this world, and it's pretty bad corruption. And just thankful. We should be thankful we don't have to participate in such a horrible, corrupt system ourselves. I mean, we may not be rich, powerful people, but luckily we don't have to be involved in such horrible levels of corruption that they are involved in the elite.
Yeah.
And just to imagine if you were put in a situation to be someone like that, where you had to make the choice to be involved in this kind of really horrible sex trafficking and corruption. just imagine what it takes for an individual to get to that point. Maybe not
Or-
too much,
yeah.
maybe a lot,
or
but,
or to sleep
yeah.
at night, you know.
Yeah.
I want to echo what you said though. Like, you know, we still have hope. You know, God is in heaven. God is in charge of all of this. Even the evil, wicked things can be used for good. And so, to your point, yeah, we don't black pill. Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I black pill, but I'm a black pill bulimic. So we just got to regurgitate the black pill right back up and get on out there.
It makes me think of this. There's an old, it's a ballerina, right? And it's just a close up of her feet. And one, she's wearing her point shoes, right? And the other one, she's barefoot, and it's all bruised and bloody and cut up and all of that stuff. And it's supposed to be used as like a motivational thing, right? And it says everyone wants success until they see what it actually takes, right? Because everybody just sees the outside of that shoe and they don't see all the pain that's underneath it. Well, then you think about if you want to be a successful singer, there are millions of people who have fantastic singing voices. So how does a Sabrina Carpenter make it? How does a Kelly Clarkson make it, right? Like you wonder, you know, what these people had to go through.
Like Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift as well.
Why do I always have to hear her music?
She's not even a great singer.
She's not even.
No,
No, you're right.
I
And
heard
she
her-
looks a lot like the mother or the wife of that Satanist.
I had to hear
person,
her.
yeah.
She was on. I didn't know, man. People still listen to her music.
She's the biggest artist in the world, and that's crazy.
I just
right?
didn't. I wasn't paying attention to
Oh,
any
yeah.
pop culture until I hung out with some
She's
people that were younger. And,
She's a billionaire now.
and I
you
heard
know?
this
Oh my
Taylor
gosh, I
Swift,
didn't know that.
and I didn't even know what her music sounded like. That's how far removed I am from everything.
Well,
on
they,
that
you know,
regard.
that Taylor Swift was part of that op with Travis Kelce. They were literally trying to create some sort of power couple that then they could turn into political tools to stump for Joe Biden. It failed for the most part, I think we can say. But yeah,
Well, I think Kelsey went for it a little bit, and then he, you know, so much so that he did a commercial for the jab, you know,
I
and
remember
things like that. And he said he was going to, you know, allegedly going to vote for Biden, but you know, he was on Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes' wife, right? You know, Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback for the Kansas City. If non-sports fans out there, Travis Kelce plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, and so does Patrick Mahomes. Brittany Mahomes, his wife, is conservative as you can be,
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
and so much
outspoken about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so much so that they tried to cancel her for posting her stuff.
Well, and that goes back to who they pick and choose that get to go viral and blow up.
yeah.
You know, and that's the thing is they'll never pick people who are grassroots. You gotta be, you know, someone who really wants to come up if you're
Yeah.
going against all of that. And
With
the
very
only
few
thing,
exceptions.
Yeah,
the
I
only
mean-
thing you can really do is the grassroots method of viral blow up. You
Yep.
cannot. You
Oliver
can't go
Anthony.
through, because the other ones they're just the other folks, they're just airdropping these
Yeah.
people on us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always wondering, like a Ben Shapiro or something like that, all these conservative intelligentsia kind of prognosticators of conservative ideas. I'm always like, where are they just airdropping these people out of nowhere on
Yeah.
us? You know, I never knew who Mark Levin was.
Yeah.
You know, until I started hearing about it. I listened to his show a little bit, but like who
Yeah.
is he? Who is Mark Levin?
And there's a healthy skepticism out there. I mean, if this show right here blows up, there will inevitably be people that say,
Oh yeah,
you know,
These
you're a
guys.
plant or whatever.
Yeah.
But I will say, you know, to your question, like it makes you think. There's a lot of people out there with fantastic talent, you know, fantastic singing voices or whatever. You know, I think about my own life, how, you know, originally, like, yeah, I wanted to be an actor. It was, you know, that's what I wanted to do. Thankfully, I met my wife, and I was like, no, I think I'd just rather get married and stay at home and, you know, live in the my version of the Shire, which I think that's what Arkansas is basically a really well kept secret. But I didn't know anything about the casting couches and the Harvey. You know, you really just thought that the best person, the best actor, the one with the best craft would actually win out. But that's clearly not the case, you know. And I think to myself, man, had I actually gone and tried to do that, who knows what you know trouble
Yeah,
I would have gotten myself into.
Yeah,
So,
they just think all them people come out there thinking they're going to be Hollywood actors, you know.
it's like, well, sit down on this Harvey Weinstein couch. Mr. Man or woman, or Mr. Woman or man.
And,
who knows?
And there are an infinite number of Harvey Weinsteins out there.
Yeah.
So he's just the one that got caught.
Yeah, that's
This might be
exactly
like a whole business model of just, sexually exploiting people.
The porn industry did not invent the casting couch. It came from the real life experiences of up and comers.
Yep.
Oh, all right. Well, we didn't get to the rest of the stuff we were going to talk about today, but I think we've pretty much handled it. Has anybody got any closing thoughts?
I just, I really like people to, just do their own research now. If you watch this and saw all these names and all these people and you still have reservations, just keep doing your own research, because a lot of the Jeffrey Epstein connections are actually just really easily publicly connected. It's not something that you really have to say that, I'm going out on a stretch of imagination here.
Right.
These are well-known public connections to Jeffrey Epstein. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact that a lot of this stuff went down, and I think we all got vindicated finally. We're still getting vindication, and it doesn't matter what President Trump says or what the news media says on this shit, because I'll tell you this, in the end of the day, if the public is not satisfied with these answers, it's like, people still are again, looking at JFK, and people still question 9/11, and people still question all kinds of things. And if this Jeffrey Epstein thing never gets answered, it's almost like kind of like a folk story that just goes on through the generations, where people keep talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And I bet, I'll make a prediction, maybe we'll look at this video 10 years from now, maybe not, but I'll make a prediction, it's 2025, that there'll still be stories about Jeffrey Epstein in 3035, that they'll still 10 years from now.
2035.
2035, excuse
Maybe
me.
30,
Maybe that
35.
way, maybe that far in the future, they'll still be talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
Like,
They'll be on Mars.
1,000 years ago. Yeah.
They'll still be looking through the files. Yeah.
Well, to Jacob's point, I will say this. I'll leave with this closing thought. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, do not be fooled. That is not the news. Okay? That is slighted propaganda, Now, I watch Fox News because I lean more toward that side anyway with conservatives, but do your own research, as Jacob said, and that includes independent media. Those who are pounding the sand, or whatever the word expression is, pounding the pavement, thank you, pounding the pavement and looking for the truth, who are not just trying to appease advertisers and all of that stuff. The people who are out there, looking for the truth, that is where you're going to find the truth.
Yep.
All right. Well, I thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Rob.
Been a lot of fun.
All right.
Glad to be here.
We'll be back here. Rob and I, for sure, will be back here tomorrow. I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but
let's see. I'm like a bird, man. I'd love to come back on.
But we'll be back here tomorrow. I guess my closing thought is this: we know, they know, we know, and we know, they know, we know. Is that right?
I think so.
No, did I get
That's
it wrong?
No. Yeah, the Ben Stiller from I know you know you know this,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know that
But
I know.
that's actually where it is, and so the blatant gaslighting has got to stop. Yeah. Like I guess that's my biggest thing is they are just openly mocking us by gaslighting us to this degree. It would be a lot better to just admit, hey, there's too many governments and too many powerful people. The whole world would collapse. Like, you could make that argument a lot easier than what they're doing now. It would still be wrong, because you're basically saying we've got to let kitty diddlers walk free, okay,
to save the world,
which is still terrible and wrong. But you could at least make the argument to me a lot better by just admitting that instead of what they're doing now. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, Peter Ducey is not going to let this go unless he is told to let it go in the press room. So I don't think this is dying out anytime soon.
I'm pretty sure on those data points, Rupert Murdoch was among those data points that you showed us. Pretty sure I saw him.
He's somewhere in there, yeah.
So he's gonna rein old Peter in soon.
That's
like
right.
They did with Tucker.
That's
or
right.
Just fire
yeah,
him.
and speaking Speaking of casting couches, we could do a whole show on Roger Ailes someday. I guess
Oh
the
my
late
gosh.
Roger Ailes
Blonde
and
bombshells.
the Fox News. Yeah, so it goes. You can find those casting couches, I guess, anywhere. All right, folks, that's all the time that we have for this edition of the Paul Harrell program. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to be back on the. I'll be back on the air at noon Central tomorrow with my show, The Millstone Report, and then another program at 4 p.m. Central here on X American News, the Paul Harrell program. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you so much for watching.